So, first of all, thanks for being here. Several of you came here on time and some of you were a little earlier. Thank you so much. I'm sure you planned your day to be here on time because Bangalore traffic is not necessarily your very cooperative aspect. Um, so today what we will do is I will talk a little bit about Interweave. Some of you know us, some of you may not. So tell you a little bit about Interweave and why we came up with this concept of hashtag inclusion now, how we arrive at the theme to this, and what is unique about this conference, and why we are doing this at all in the first place. Right? So Interweave is a 15-year-old consulting organization that focuses exclusively on diversity, equity, and inclusion solutions for organizations. We started way back in 2007 when nobody had really heard about this topic, and people said, "What's wrong with you? Why don't you do teamwork or communication skills?" Companies need that more than diversity because India is a very diverse land, and unity and diversity is our tagline. So, what are you trying to do? Now, I think some good sense prevailed, and I said to myself, "No, there is space for this. This will happen someday," and stuck with it. And I think that paid off. It paid off in multiple ways. One, because it gave us very rich experience on the ground, literally on the trenches, because I would go into organizations and ask, what kind of diversity challenges do you have? And they said, no challenges. And then you kind of started asking, now that you have people from diverse backgrounds, you have people from the north, you have people from the south, small towns, prestigious colleges, IIMs versus local business schools, aren't you seeing any issues? Slowly people started to talk about it. They said, yes, now that we have all these different people coming into the organization, we are hearing about incivility in the workplace. There is, grievances coming up saying I'm being talked to rudely or I'm not being included, etc., etc. And several of them actually even talked about how now that we have more women in the workplace, we are also hearing complaints of sexual harassment. Now that in 2007 was a word that people didn't utter, right? So it was very, very interesting, and we had the Vishaka guidelines at that time, and companies had it somewhere in their policy books, but weren't really talking about it. So we said, okay, respect is such a basic ingredient of an inclusive workplace. Let's start there because that seems to be something that we can work on. That's how we got started. It was not on Interweave's agenda as we started to do WASH at that time, but it became a very integral part and a very large part of our work today. So from there we moved on, and around 2008, 2009 time frame is when companies started celebrating Women's Day. Bring your kids to work, right? These were things that started to come in at that time, and then these large multinational companies were saying, "Oh, we do diversity and inclusion work," and then we realized they were very event based. It's about 1 or 2 times in a year that they were doing something and discussing. So I said, good place to start. There's nothing wrong with that, but we also need to know why this is important for us. So let's get into conversations on why this is a business imperative, because on the face of it, there isn't a direct business connect. It looks like a nice fluffy topic to be spending your time on, but it doesn't have business impact. And that's how the conversations began, saying why it's important to hire a woman even if there are enough men to do the job, right? So kind of getting people to understand that, despite the inconvenience associated with it, so to say, right? And those conversations slowly started to evolve. And then we said, okay, it's about getting people in, but how do we keep them? And then we started talking about policies and programs in the organization. So we evolved, and in a sense, at Interweave, we've always taken pride in the fact that we evolved with the marketplace. So clients told us, this is our next step. What should we do? And we sort of grew our verticals also around the same lines. So they said, okay, now we do policy reviews and try and make them more inclusive. And then they said, okay, we're doing all of these things, but women themselves are not raising their hand for opportunities. They are shying away from taking top jobs and mainstream jobs. So what should we do? And that's how a women's leadership program came in. Now, when we say women's leadership, it's very loosely called women's leadership. It's not that women lack leadership skills, but it's really about helping them create legitimacy for leadership. And so how do you build a mindset? Because given our social situations, the socialization that most women go through, they are always encouraged to take a step back and not put themselves out there fully. So that vertical began. And then as we gained experience in the marketplace, we kind of realized that, okay, talking about the subject at a rational level is one part of it. But there is also a very strong emotional aspect. The way to change your mind is through the heart. So we said, okay, we need to bring in some of the arts into this conversation. And we said we need to have that emotional tug on people to change their mindset. And we started to introduce storytelling, theatre, music, art as a way of conveying this topic. So all I'm trying to say here is that it's a very rich subject. There is no end to the kind of ways in which diversity and inclusion impacts our life. And there are multiple ways in which to address it. And the canvas is out there for all of us to paint on it. And we all must do our bit. So having grown in that space for the last 15 years, we've taken a lot of steps. We started doing, doing what we call our certified diversity professional program. Now, for the first time in India, and we collaborated with an organization in the US about 6-7 years ago to bring this program to India. So we certify professionals to be diversity professionals. In the sense, you just don't get up one morning and say, I'm a diversity professional because I'm interested in the subject. But here is a structured way to approach it, and you could do that with us. And we just finished finishing our 6th batch as we speak right now. So we've been doing these kinds of things. And we've also been attending a lot of conferences meanwhile. Industry bodies were doing these conferences, and we've been part of it. And we realized that pretty much almost every conference was talking about why diversity, why is it important, what are my best practices? And we said, that's good, but that's not enough. We need to kind of make an effort to move the knowledge body on the subject a little forward and, get perspectives on this, because the rule book is still, out there, we have to write it, right? So we said, let's have a thought leadership conference. It's not one of those things where everybody comes and, networks, which is important, and talks about best practices, goes back with some awards and certificates, and which is basically what seemed to be happening. So we said, we will do one which does not have any of those, no major bells and whistles, so to say, in that sense, but we'll move the content forward, and it will be for serious practitioners, right? So that's how it started. And every year, and this is the 4th edition of our hashtag inclusion now, we've decided on a topic with a lot of brainstorming. So the first year that we did this, we said, the topic was decoding complexities, I think. Yeah, decoding complexities was our first session, because that was a time when people said, this is just so many dilemmas in this. If you promote women, then is it seen as women are less deserving, and therefore, they're getting a step up without all of that. We said, let's decode those complexities. The second year, we said, okay, companies were saying, yeah, we're trying to do all of this, but it's just not going through. The second year, the theme was seeing it through. So what are the likely challenges that you're likely to have to deal with, and how do you pull yourself through it? Third year was beyond the obvious. Now this was the time when Section 377 was being pulled down and all of that. So we said, let's talk about how we should go beyond the obvious, because every time we talk about diversity, we are talking about the most visible aspects of our diversity. But there is the whole thing about our perspectives, our ideas, our thoughts, which are often not taken into account. And this year, as we sat down, and typically we look at all the conversations we've had with our clients over the previous year, what's going on currently in the marketplace, the geopolitical situation, the economic situation, and then we decide on our topic. And this year, as we sat together, we said there is no one future of work like everybody is talking. There are multiple scenarios that could pan out. Nobody seems to know. The uncertainties are so strong. So let us arrive, and that's how we arrived at this fluidity. We said everything is so fluid. There's nothing that you can plan for. So how do we make ourselves ready and resilient for a fluid marketplace? So that's how the topic of of this year's conference has been arrived at. It's called Towards a Fluid Future. And all of our sessions have been curated around this. Now, it is looking at fluidity of gender and sexuality, which has been all around. We've been reading a lot about it and all of that. And how do company policies and programs ensure that they also get their place in the sun, and you're enabling them to succeed in the workplace, right? Accepting them as one, but you also need to build a culture that is enabling them. So that is one part we will look at. We will also look at the fluid career aspirations of the younger lot. At one time, it was all about work and nothing else. But today, we have a younger generation that's demanding a lot more. They're also not just talking about what they can give at the workplace. They're talking about feeling comfortable, psychological safety, multiple things. Wellness in the workplace. And wellness today is far more than the physical aspects we took care of. Right? Today, many of our policies have started including mental illnesses into their policies and programs. Emotional health, all of this has come into the picture. And all of that is fluid because we are still learning. We are all on a spectrum, every one of us. None of us is either here or there. It's not binary. So I think that learning is very, very new for us. We're also looking at workplaces which have become very fluid, right? Thanks to the pandemic. And this I know is a battle that we've had at Interweave, just before the pandemic broke. We were talking to organizations and saying you should look at your employees working from home. And they said, no, we're not ready for it yet. Another 5 years, 10 years, we will be ready. And look what happened. The virus kind of got us into our homes and working productively for 2 years, right? So this is exactly what we're trying to say, that everything is fluid. If you want to, make a success of things that are going to come to you as we go forward in our lives, we need to bring all of that into the picture. And over the last 2 years as well, we realized that this has a lot to do with the ESG framework that's coming into the picture, right? And this is a very, very important and critical part of the ESG, the S part, the social part, because that's what makes everything else happen. The environment is probably a little technical, but I think the S and the G part is all to do with people, and that's the focus that we have. So we really are on a very, very important agenda. And honestly, at Interweave, every day we wake up and think, how do we make the world more inclusive? That's really our mission, and we're looking at various ways in which to do that, and doing it through organizations. We find very fulfilling in a way, because many times people have connected it more with the social sector. But I think organizations are very, very powerful vehicles of social change, because we all represent society, and with a group of people sitting in, and we're trying to expand their thinking and understand better about the world and why we need to do all of the things we do, we are changing society. And I think that's the impact that we will all need to work on, because it's a collective future. The coronavirus has taught us that nothing is a single issue matter. It may have had disparate origins, but they have spread their impact across. So we need to look out for each other. It's an interdependent planet. Yeah. So I think all of this is really what our interest is, and why we are bringing it to organizations, because it takes time for organizations to accept this. It's not easy. While we sit here and think about it, we can see the connections and connect the dots. But when you're in a regular business, it's about what needs to happen next, right? So this could get lost, and that is why we take this time off and said, let's have a day dedicated to just leaders thinking and talking about perspectives. Now, our conferences may not necessarily lead to templates and checklists that you can carry back. In fact, we say a successful conference is one where there are more questions in people's minds than answers, because this is something that we need to make ourselves uncomfortable with. And that is really the reason why we are all here together, and the goal of #inclusion now. And we curate it with a lot of care. A lot goes into it. It's not one of those things, invite those speakers and get them to speak. That's not how it works. We work with them to ensure that there is a takeaway that they will go with, right? So we invite, each of our sessions are being led by industry stalwarts, people that have the practical experience. And we thought that with the consulting insights that we bring in, we will have a very rich conversation that is applicable to your organizations from tomorrow. So I'm going to stop here and thank our sponsors. I mean, times are tough, people are losing jobs, and it's just not a very pretty picture outside in many ways. We wondered if we were going to have people that will sponsor us, but you know what? There were organizations that said, does not matter. This is equally important work, and it's possibly more important now in a time like this. So let's not let go of what we have achieved so far. Let's go forward. And we have two of them on the stage right now. rest of them have been very, very supportive and are all leaders in their own rights in their industries. Little wonder why, because inclusion is such an important aspect of the work that they do. So we have Sarika from CGI, and CGI has been a partner with us since the beginning. Thank you very much, Sarika, for your continued trust in us, and we'll have them talk a little bit about why they are sponsoring us. And then we have Anirban, who leads the artificial intelligence and machine learning, which is all the new work titles that we have today, but also equally engaged with inclusion. Like as technology progresses, it has the ability to both include and exclude, right? So how do we make sure that we kind of keep inclusion in mind as we move along? He's also a speaker. Raghavan is a board sponsor for us, and I have two of them to just very quickly tell us maybe a little bit about why they're sponsoring us and what they expect from this conference. Yeah, so may I ask?
All right, thank you. That's a change. That's a nice change. First of all, fascinating story from an interview standpoint. Really glad to be part of this event. The reason why we are sponsoring this event is to reiterate the fact and our will and commitment towards diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging from a Rapid India standpoint. While we have been doing some things internally, but that's not enough. We want to strengthen and showcase our focus, not just to our employees, but also our stakeholders, clients, partners, all of them, the entire community. Over the next few months, this is just the beginning. Over the next few months, we also plan to host like a thought leadership series of enclaves, work with Interweave on topics that matter, with the final goal being that we also want to reach the homes of people, not just stay at workplace. So that's the primary reason why we are part of this event right now.
Thank you, Anirban. All the right reasons. Thank you.
Hi, Sarika here from CGI. Thanks, Anirban, for sharing. But thanks to you, Nimi, for being so passionate. I think the passion was hitting me hard actually sitting out here next to you. So I have been in CGI for last 6 months, and the first thing when I was meeting my team, I lead the HR function. I just asked that what are we He said, every organization is at different stages of evolution. And if you ask why CGI sponsored Interweave, because the partnership which we have created over the last 6-7 years with Interweave, the trust which we have built, and it's not only the talk, we believe in the content, the quality and the outcome. And I think Interweave has given it all. Our expectation is much more, be it in terms of policies, the processes. The first person we think my team goes to is Interweave, because that's the faith we have in Interweave.
So much, Sarika. Music to my ears.
And I have known Interweave in my previous organization as well. I have met Nimi in many of the conferences. And for me, I had a smiling face when in CGI, my team told me that we partner with Interweave for all our critical stuff on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And just to tell you, this word, it's not only a HR KPI right now. It flows from the CEO, it flows from the board. Every CEO in large MSME or small organization has DEI as a KPI. And when it comes from the top, when it gets percolated down from the top, the entire workforce is impacted in a positive way. So, be it in my talent management process, which I do, succession planning, learning and development, training, the promotion exercise which we do, or the compensation review which we just completed, we ensure that be it the gender gap, be it the percentage of women getting promoted, it's just to feel that we are not seeing that we are equal, but we actually believe in inclusion and equity. That's more critical. So every meeting we have in our cabinets, every reviews we have, this is something which actually hovers around without being spoken. And today, the entire day we will be spending with Interweave. Myself and my colleague Srilata, who is my L&D leader, we are here. Post lunch, we are having a leadership sensitization workshop, and done by Nimi's team over there. And that's the time they are giving. 3 hours getting from the leaders, getting a date, making them believe why it is important. Makes a lot of difference, and also it makes a lot of difference not only for the APAC region, it really goes across the world. So my global CEO and CHRO are looking for it. What is it and how great it is for us to replicate these sessions. But thank you once again, Mimi, for all the support and help, and really, really grateful.
Thank you, Sarika. It is really lovely of you to acknowledge us, and yeah, the partnership has been a very precious one, and thank you for that. Thank you for trusting us with such important work. We also have other sponsors here. There's Publicis Sapient here. There's Fidelity. Who's Move Technologies is here. You know, if any of you would like to say something, we're happy, and of course we take some questions from the press. We can have something to ask us.
Thank you. So I'll repeat what I was telling the Interweave team sometime back in the EU, is that I think I've been in the field of diversity, equity, inclusion for almost 15 years now, apart from different practices that I've led. I've been really happy to see the progress in the depth of content and bringing in relevant topics to the forefront for discussions. It's also been a place for me to refer a lot of PI practitioners. So I have a very large network of PI practitioners, LGBTQI advocates, people with disabilities, movement practitioners and advocates. And I've been referring quite a few people to attend, especially this conference, because of the entire agenda. I feel they would get like a lot back, right? A lot of BI practitioners are people who double hat, like, with an HR hat or a business role. And while I think it is intuitive for us to think that, okay, everybody who comes out of HR or as a leader knows about diversity, equity, inclusion, the world is changing fast. The agencies are evolving, right? The problems are getting more ambiguous and complex. And unless and until we are truly connected to the grassroots and have insights into what people want, and then the organization is willing to really adapt to a newer future, which is a lot. Like you were saying, how leaders are investing time. Unless until that happens, I think that's not possible. And when people invest that time, it's also very important to give them what they need to take back, actionable stuff apart from insights and what we call yarn. So this is something that I've been really invested in. I truly believe, and a DI session cannot be a one-time vaccine. Yeah, so it's very important. So I love the array of topics. We are happy to sponsor because we feel that the depth of content will truly create that ecosystem that we all need, right? Not just within our organizations, from organization external. Just for an example, when you're hiring, and you're always hiring, right? Even in the scenario that people are right-sizing, you would want to take on people who are sensitized, who have a certain depth and EQ in DEI. So that being just the starter, I think we are very glad to partner because this is that forum where we can expand this philosophy perspective and especially the teachable point of view. Really. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to continue with majority of them. What I would want to echo the same thoughts. Being in this industry, it is actually sometimes it's a difficult decision to make whether am I doing the right thing. And what is right, it varies from person to person perception. So, as rightly pointed out by few of you, it is a mindset change that we're trying to bring about. So that something which is happening unconsciously in certain areas. Some places it needs a little bit of trigger for it to become a conscious kind of a thought processing that happens. It could be at various stages. It could be in terms of HR related process. It could be in your own day-to-day departmental works. So, just to highlight, in our organization, Moog also, the person who is leading the D&I initiative is a technical person who heads a department initiatives plus double hats and is also taking care of D&I. And to bring in that seriousness, as my colleague also pointed out, we are trying to look at a top-down approach where the entire leadership is also talking the same words as a newcomer in the organization. So I am just new in this organization. I joined maybe 3 months ago. So, but I will echo the same thoughts which my CEO has, who is sitting based out of US. So we all will talk the same because we believe that it's a mindset that we are conscious of. We would like to ensure that everyone in the organization is conscious and whoever we are partnering with for any of the process, we are conscious. So I believe this kind of conference would definitely help. And as she pointed out, it's not just a one-time vaccine that we are looking at. It's a regular, continuous inclusion effort that we put in. And I think we are for it and we are just looking forward for this. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. We also have Arvind here, who's a speaker at the conference, founder of Fuller Life. Arvind, thank you. Please.
I'm going to be part of the well-being panel, so I'll just give a brief update about it. In the last 5 years, not only including the pandemic, but going a little beyond that, well-being has been redefined quite comprehensively. Right? So, 2-3 things broadly. One, the construct in which well-being is viewed is different. Earlier, your well-being was your problem. That's great if the factors of production were labor, land, capital, machinery. Now, it's fundamentally people, that construct changes. So, the importance that you place on how good your workforce is would be the kind of importance that you would place on maintenance of machines that you would do circa 1970. Right? If you think about it over a slightly larger time horizon, that construct has been dramatically. So, employee expectations about this and what they're looking about has changed. Second, well-being for the individual has changed dramatically. Earlier, well-being was, did you live till 60? Right? If you lived till 60, that was great. And that's not true anymore. It's also not true within the family. So that has changed dramatically because now you're thinking about, you're aware of, so many things are changing as far as well-being inside your immediate family or maybe one drop from there, one extension from there. Given the sea change in all of this, we will try and explore some of the thoughts about it to make sure that everybody is included, whether it is family, friends, community. And they're looking at well-being across physical health, emotional well-being, financial, because all of this matters. You see, the thing is, if everything is fine, that's the only way in which you're okay. If any one of those areas is off kilter, people are not okay. So I think that companies are beginning to come to terms with this and we'll find out how serious people are about it at that conference. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Arvind. And before we go open to the press, Shilpa, anything to add?
It's pretty hard to top up everything right now. But Anirban and me have we were discussing about how we are doing the IPI at Rakuten. So upfront, we are the kindergarten kids in front of all the people here. But we're learning. That's the constant motivation for us. And we have partnered with Interweave because I know of Amy and I've heard a little more about her. And being such a sensitive topic and such sensitive actions can come out of it, it can make or break any organization. So we're very careful in partnering, choosing a partner for anything that's got to do with diversity and inclusion. So that's first of all why we've partnered with Interweave. And just another thread to what Anirban spoke. Sponsoring events, that concerns with diversity, and you're actually, emboldening how we're looking at diversity internally and externally, which I mean, been covered, but also what sponsorship does to events like this is gets in a plurality of the audience itself. So for Anirban and me and the rest of the people who will be attending from Rakuten, we'll go back with those diverse thoughts and choose what we can execute at Rakuten. So that's more from why we want to sponsor and be part of this event a lot more actively.